Hi, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Today, it is a great honor to welcome you to this side event on this important topic, the mining for development. I am Umut Mirzaev, President of the International Eurasia Press Fund. Our organization established in 1992 and has general consultative status in the UN ECOSOC. For almost 25 years, IPF has joined the Mine Action Program in Azerbaijan, which is the most contaminated by landmines. The mining is it not just about safety, it is about giving people the chance to rebuild and grow. It is crucial for achieving global goals like the Sustainable Development Goals. We have been working for a long time with the International Institute for Rights and Development and Roots of Peace to support the SDG initiative, 18 SDG initiative. Today, I ask governments, international organizations, and civil society to make the mining a priority. By doing so, we can make the world safer and help people rebuild their lives and communities. There are 10 mine victims here today. Photo everybody. And I need short. Oh, sorry. There are 10 mine victims here today. This is not just patriots. They are here in spirit. Let's say no landmines together. I see here representative of ICBL, ICAN, UN Women, UNHCR, ICRC, Geneva International Center Human Rights, Demining organizations, and governments. Thank you to everyone here who support this initiative. Now I would like to introduce our moderator, Venslav Savev, General Secretary, Geneva Geostrategic Observatory. Thank you for attention. Please, Mr. Savev. Thank
you, Mr. Mirzaev. Excellencies, dear friends, welcome. Because we start a little bit late, we will not waste more time and immediately engage with the speakers. I believe we will start with a video first. I would like to emphasize maybe one element here and why we organize this panel during the social forum of the Human Rights Council. We realize, and many reports in the last months have emphasized the commitment of states in human rights. Committing to their human rights obligation is universal, even for countries that have not signed all disarmament treaties, including on landmines, on nuclear disarmament. We will talk about that. So the focus here is on the humanitarian dimension of disarmament in general, and that's why we have advocacy experts on nuclear disarmament. It's to focus on the rehabilitation, on the social dimensions of clearing territories contaminated by landmines. It is to look at the support to victims of people with disabilities, the regeneration of agricultural lands, and this is why the focus today is on this connection between the human rights communities and the disarmament communities. This is why we organize during the Human Rights Council this session. In that sense, this panel is one of the bridges connecting several stakeholders, civil society, universities. We have people here from the Geneva universities, representatives of governments, NGOs, and I would say the three major organizations here involved in what we summarize as humanitarian disarmament. Probably we start with the video, if technically we are ready, which summarizes the situation not only in the region Umut Mirzaev is coming from, the Caucasus, but also Africa and Asia. So if we are ready with the video, we start with the video first.
Landmines and unexploded ordnance, including cluster bombs, kill thousands of civilians each year, with thousands more maimed. Livelihoods are disrupted, land is abandoned, and daily routines can be life-threatening.
Today, in the territories of nearly 70 countries around the world, 60 million people face the risk posed by landmines and explosive remnants of war.
An unprecedented volume of landmines and unexploded weapons contaminates rural and urban war zones, maiming and killing innocent civilians long after conflict has ended. Mine action is vital. Roads cleared of explosive devices enable peacekeepers to patrol and protect civilians. And when fields are cleared and schools and hospitals are made safe, normal life can resume. I urge all governments to provide political and financial support to enable mine action work to continue wherever it is needed.
Azerbaijan has set a particular national sustainable development goal on humanitarian demining. Moreover, Azerbaijan supports humanitarian demining efforts globally and put forward a proposal of launching the 18th SDG on demining.
Fighting for a mine-free world. Yes, it's an ambitious goal. We know the road ahead is long and challenging, but resigning to complacency and/or despair are obstacles far more insurmountable. So we remain resolute as we work toward a future where landmines are a distant memory, where families and communities can thrive off of their land without fear of life-changing injuries or death, where countries can finally declare that they are landmine-free and experience the immense opportunities and change that come with it.
In addition to the SDGs under the global framework, Cambodia has added its own specific goals relating to mine actions, namely a mine-free Cambodia by 2025.
I would say that this is an incredibly important initiative to continue to talk about this, because this will bring the issue to the attention of world leaders. If there's a campaign to create an 18th Sustainable Development Goal, this is going to get people's attention. They're going to say, well, what? What are they saying? Why?
SDGs. Zero mine, disappear, everything mine under the ground.
We call on the international community to sustain and scale up its support on mine action in Ukraine and in countries affected by mines around the world. The latest trends in mine action financing have been downwards.
SDG 18, what is it good for? What is it good for is that we have advocacy, that we keep the topic alive.
It can be an opportunity to increase focus, to galvanize attention on the specific issue in that context.
We promise you with all our hearts, and I know it sounds impossible. Allah, God has miracles. Something will, inshallah, inshallah, inshallah.
For many years, the world has been facing the landmine tragedy. As someone whose family, friends, and relatives have suffered from this problem, I know from my 25 years experience on mine actions how landmines have terrible and destructive effects. We call on the whole world to accept the mine action as the SDG 18 to mobilize in the fight against landmines, strengthen resources, and eliminate threats to human rights.
The mine is a huge global problem. International community, of course, have to pay attention to this problem, and we have to struggle with this problem all together.
By thanking Anonymous for presenting me at the World Food Prize. The last several times that I've been here, again, I've detonated landmines, but this is a shovel made from the remnants of war, the explosive remnants of war from Kadaba.
Landmines should be the 18th Sustainable Development Goal. And in the world of golf, let us put the world on par. A world without landmines, and a world where human beings can dig deeper for peace and plant the roots of peace on Earth.
Difficult to to continue after images like those, but probably that's why we have one of the main actors in international demining and mine prevention efforts who is with us, Juan Carlos Ruan, who is the director of the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Convention Implementation Support Unit. He's one of the major international actors in this field, probably for the last 20 years. He has been involved over 20 years ago in Colombia, for instance, in training humanitarian demining personnel. He was active in Suriname in coordinating the remaining demining efforts, and for the last almost 10 years he's in this function of advocacy in front of the governments to push their implementation and pushing for the signing of the treaty. Thank you, Juan Carlos, for being with us.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the organizers. That's a very humbling introduction, and maybe a little overboard, but okay. I think the video said it all to us, so we can, I'll just be very brief because we have many speakers. Just to say that first, as many of you may be aware, first, it's very nice to see faces that I don't know, because it means we're breaking silos and talking to different people, which is great. So as many of you know, in the 1990s, there was a big call to prohibit and ban anti-personnel mines for many reasons. One is the indiscriminate nature of this weapon, which doesn't, make a differentiation between civilians and combatants. 60% of the victims today are children. These weapons cause, as you saw in the video, very much unnecessary suffering and superfluous injuries. And if you ever seen the effects of a mine, you would see this instantly. These things are long-lasting. They last in the ground for 60 years or more. They don't respect peace processes or peace agreements that have been signed. They were previously in widespread use by all militaries, and they have a devastating impact on individuals and communities, as you've seen in the video. So the impact on individuals is evident, I think. Thousands of people continue to be injured today, killed or maimed by anti-personnel mines, and unfortunately, while the global numbers have gone down, we see some increases, mainly because of the use of improvised anti-personnel mines, which is the weapon of choice by a lot of armed non-state actors today. So as I mentioned, these injuries are traumatic and most of the time leave people with lifelong disabilities. As many of you may know, most affected communities are located in rural areas and often already marginalized. So this, the rights of mine survivors and victims are further impaired. There's also a great need for medical rehabilitation, assistive technology, that in most mine-affected countries is under-resourced, both by technical staff and financing. And as I mentioned, this issue is exacerbated by the fact that most of these mine-affected communities are found in rural communities where these resources and services are not available. So we have seen the social and economic inclusion of mine survivors and their families impaired, placing survivors and families at an economic and social disadvantage. And we see a real impact on psychological well-being of affected communities and individuals. The list goes on. In terms of the community, as you know, there's difficulties in returning displaced people to their homes. The delivery of aid is hindered. Reconstruction is delayed, and sometimes communities are divided. Minefields on borders divide communities that will usually transit these borders. The life and impact on indigenous communities in Peru and Ecuador and Colombia, you can see that their livelihoods are impeded by anti-personnel mines, and their usual traditional way of life is impeded. There's an economic and development is impaired. Large areas are contaminated by anti-personnel mines, which prevent people from accessing resources and putting them to productive use. And unfortunately, most people have to go out and do it anyways and risk accidents and put themselves in this situation. So the list goes on as well. So what I wanted to say was that it's a pleasure to see new faces, because we cannot pigeonhole the issue of anti-personnel mines within disarmament. It is a disarmament issue, but it's a development issue, a human rights issue, a health issue, a humanitarian issue, an environmental issue, and an issue of overall good governance. So we cannot look at it through a disarmament lens. The Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Convention of 1997 provided a comprehensive response to the humanitarian impact of anti-personnel mines, including through the clearance of mined areas, educating populations about the risk of these areas. It was the first convention to have provisions for victims of the weapon it was banning, and of course ensuring the universalization of the prohibition of anti-personnel mines and encouraging their destruction. There's 33 states that remain outside of this convention, so it's 164 states parties is very successful, but there's 33 states that remain outside. And so the call is for these states to join as soon as possible and to consider carrying out a landmine policy review to see if you really, really need these mines still in your stockpiles. So I think this is a very important thing. 3 weeks from today, the states parties will host the review conference of the convention in Siem Reap, Cambodia, and it's symbolic that's in Cambodia, a country that suffered very much from anti-personnel mines. They have approximately 40,000 mine victims in the country. So the states parties will gather in Siem Reap to adopt the Anchor Action Plan, the Siem Reap Anchor Action Plan for the next 5 years, and to adopt a political declaration to make sure that everyone recommits to the Anti-Personnel Landmine Convention. And so in one of the key actions, I'll just stop here, but one of the key actions, action number 1 of the action plan is to integrate the convention's obligations and activities into national development plans and budgets, poverty reduction strategies, humanitarian response plans, national strategies on health and mental health, and for the inclusion of persons with disability, such as, of course, the implementation of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and others, and to strengthen partnerships with these wider frameworks associated with humanitarian, peace building, climate, environment, development, health, disability, and the human rights sectors. So this is really a critical issue for to ensure that the promise made by the states parties under the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Convention is delivered. So I'll stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Juan Carlos. You emphasized the breaking silos and the non-discriminatory nature of this weapon. Let's be also non-discriminatory in engaging stakeholders. And I would like, in this way, to pass now the floor to Mr. Nariman Kasimov, who is the Deputy Head of the International Relations Department of the Mine Action Agency of Azerbaijan. He's coming from Baku. For this event, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Sabev. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, thank you for gathering here at this side event, DMI for Development, organized by the International Eurasia Press Fund, focused on tackling one of the most pressing humanitarian and developmental issues affecting both Azerbaijan and the many countries worldwide. Landmine and explosive remnants of war represent a formidable barrier to peace, development, and safe resettlement in post-conflict regions around the globe. As we convene here, it's crucial to acknowledge our shared purpose, addressing the pervasive threats that landmines pose to communities long after conflicts have ended. This gathering is not just a meeting, but united efforts to share experiences, disseminate the best practices, and explore innovative solutions to overcome this global challenge. Landmines are silent killers, and Azerbaijan is no stranger to this problem. Azerbaijan stands as one of the most heavily contaminated countries globally, with substantial regions still grappling with enduring presence of landmines and explosive remnants of war. In the aftermath of the liberation of our territories, we conducted thorough surveys to assess the contamination levels in the liberated territories. The findings have revealed that the contamination is higher than initially considered, especially after the local anti-terror measures that were carried out in September last year. Years of conflict have left large areas contaminated with the hidden threats, obstructing safe rehabilitation, agricultural productivity, infrastructure development. It's estimated that over 1.5 million landmines have been planted in Azerbaijan, creating hazardous conditions that endanger the lives and livelihoods of our citizens. This contamination has posed significant challenges to our development efforts, hindering access to vital resources, impeding the return of displaced communities, and obstructing land use for agriculture and infrastructure projects. Until this contamination is fully addressed, entire communities remain unable to secure their future, risking further tragedy. The human toll of these landmines is profound. Since the end of Second Karabakh War in November 2020, 381 people have fallen victims to explosive remnants, 70 of whom lost their lives. These tragic losses are felt not only by those in Azerbaijan, but by families and communities worldwide who share similar experiences. In response to this pressing issue, the Mine Action Agency of the Republic of Azerbaijan has taken decisive action to address landmine contamination and mitigate its impact on our society. So I want to share some statistics with you. With tireless commitments, ANAM, along with other operators, including IPF, has cleared over 170,000 hectares, removing more than 164,000 explosive remnants of war, including 34,000 anti-personnel mines, 20,000 anti-tank mines, and 109,000 unexploded ordnances. Each hazardous item removed and each hectare restored represent a step closer to safety and renewal for affected communities. These demining operations directly support the Great Return Program, a strategic national initiative aimed at enabling the return of internally displaced persons to their ancestral lands. Under this program, supported by demining efforts, more than 8,000 IDPs have already returned to their homeland. In addition to these returns, comprehensive rehabilitation and reconstruction efforts are underway in clear territories to rebuild critical infrastructure, housing, schools, and medical facilities. However, the road to mine-free world is long and costly. In Azerbaijan, approximately $380 million has already been allocated to landmine clearance, with around 95% of this funding coming from the Azerbaijani government. This overwhelming financial commitment speaks to the importance that countries place on creating safe and mine-free environment, yet it also highlights the need for broader international collaboration and support. Only 4.4% all funding in Azerbaijan come from international sources, underscoring the need for continued global partnership. Mine action is more than a humanitarian imperative. It's foundational to economic recovery, environmental restoration, and sustainable development. In Azerbaijan, our demining efforts support our broader goal, including dedicated 18th National Sustainable Development Initiative, led by His Excellency Mr. Ilham Aliyev, President of the Republic of Azerbaijan. We believe that a global commitment to humanitarian demining as a global 18th sustainable goal would drive international support for mine action, enable countries to build safer and more prosperous future. It's essential to recognize that mine action is not merely a humanitarian issue, but also a developmental one. Supporting mine clearance directly contributes to economic recovery, infrastructure development, and sustainable return of displaced communities. With more resources, we can expedite the process of making our land safe for resettlement and reconstruction. By supporting mine action, we contribute to a future where communities in Azerbaijan and around the globe are no longer burdened by the threat of explosive remnants, but instead can look forward to a future of hope, productivity, and peace. It's our hope and a firm belief that through collaboration, we can reduce the suffering caused by landmines, restore hope to affected communities, and rebuild lives. Together, we can work toward a mine-free world, a world where future generations can live free of fear, with safety, dignity, and opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gasimov. I would like to emphasize two keywords you said about finding innovative solutions and searching for international partnerships. This is also one of the goals of this panel here. And one of the partners in this event, maybe we can, he couldn't be with us today, but we can present his video. Is Nidal Salim, who is the director of the International Institute for Rights and Development, and he has prepared a short video, so we can show it. And after that, Kasia.
Good morning, everyone. I wish you a successful event today for the landmine. And I would like to remind you that we are now in the decade of action for the SDG. The SDG, which has 17 goals, and all are linked with each other. From the goal number 1, poverty reduction, to the final one with the partnership. We always used to say that in the first 10 SDG, we have physical parameter, food, energy, water, health, women, community, innovation. And then we have the climate change, we have the justice, peace, etc. But we have also to put a high pressure on the impact of landmines, because landmine is always interact with all these factors. It influences food, it influences water, it influences community, it influences innovation, it influences everything. We are living now in a very transition period of the world where we have a lot of wars, a lot of crises, a lot of problems distributed everywhere. We still have a big gap and a big losses coming from the landmines. And we have to support strongly the peace. And one of the main things which we have to do in the peace process is to remove the landmines from all cultivated areas. I'm not going to mention a specific area, but we have it in Europe, we have it in Asia, we have it in Africa, we have it in Middle East, we have it everywhere. Landmines is affecting everything. It's affecting the natural resources. It's affecting the water. It's affecting the economy of the people. It displaces people from one area to another. Agricultural land are getting deteriorated. We, as an expert of water, we found many impact from landmines on water. One of the worst cases which happened in the world happened in Bosnia. We don't want this problem to occur again in any part of the world. We are calling the international community, we are calling everyone to work together to remove the landmines and to prepare to remove everything, because it costs everything. If this money are investing in other subjects like poverty reduction or in the development, it will be more useful. So we are calling together as experts, as a scientist, as NGOs. We are calling the UN to consider the landmines as the 18th goal of the SDG. We already called for that in the UN Water Assembly last year in the United Nations, but we are emphasizing again in the social forum now, which is held in Geneva, with many experts, that we have to move forward. We have to work together, all together, to put the landmine as one of the goals of the SDG, and we are almost in the last period or last time of that. We have to see impact, and we would like to see it again in the as goal number 18. Thank you very much, and wishing you a nice meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Nidal. Pity you couldn't be with us because you are one of the founding members of this movement here. But talking about partnerships, one of the main institutions is the ICDL, the International Campaign to Ban Landmines. And here we have the Deputy Director, Kasia Delika. She will share with us best practices, knowing that she has over 20 years of experience in campaigning in this particular field, starting even from her teenage years, where she was taking care of children, victims of landmines. And this is a great privilege that you can give us insights. And probably immediately after we can have the representative of the Azerbaijani side, Mr. Hafiz Safikhanov, immediately talking after you to give more a perspective of the region. So one after the other, but you start, Kasia.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and big thanks to the International Eurasia Press Fund for organizing this event, creating the space, and for promoting efforts to integrate mine action into the broader development and human rights agenda. And of course, for inviting us, ICB, the International Campaign to Ban Landmines Cluster Munition Coalition, for this event. So the ICBL-CMC is a global coalition of civil society organizations like the Azerbaijan Campaign to Ban Landmines, which I am delighted was able to join us today for the panel, dedicated to eradicating anti-personnel mines and cluster munitions and addressing their long-term impact on communities worldwide. As it has been mentioned already, these weapons are inherently indiscriminate. Both are designed to cause massive injuries or death, often creating lifelong disabilities. They threaten lives, limbs, and livelihoods of the women, girls, boys, and women, men, girls, and boys who live in affected communities until the long, expensive, and painstaking and costly work of surveying and clearing land is finished. The ICBL-CMC has thus made it our mission to rid the world of these weapons once and for all, and to protect and promote the rights of these who have fallen victim to these weapons. How have we been going about it? After the long and futile attempts by the global community in trying to get the global landmine crisis under control in the 90s by addressing the symptoms rather than the cause of the problem, the civil society, united under the ICBL umbrella, called in 1992 for a total ban on anti-personnel landmines, and later worked together with a group of states, the ICRC and the UN, towards a legally binding instrument that would completely outlaw this weapon. This was, of course, achieved in 1997 through the adoption of the groundbreaking, at that time, Mine Ban Convention. The role of civil society was recognized through the Nobel Peace Prize awarded to the campaign and its founding coordinator the same year. A decade later, we helped to initiate a similar process that led to the Convention on Cluster Munitions, adopted in 2008, which banned cluster bombs. Currently, our mission centers on the full universalization and implementation of these two conventions, the Mine Ban Convention and the Convention on Cluster Munitions, as the most comprehensive and effective frameworks for addressing the threat to communities posed by these indiscriminate weapons worldwide. These conventions have already achieved tremendous results. As the ISU director spoke of the successes of the past 25 years of the Mine Ban Convention, I'll try to highlight briefly the achievements of its sister convention, the Convention on Cluster Munitions, that entered into force 14 years ago. To date, 124 states are on board of the convention, with many states outside the convention still abiding by its norms. All of the cluster munitions held in stockpiles of states parties have been now destroyed. Over 10 states have declared all their contamination caused by cluster munitions and have become free of cluster munitions. And efforts are underway to implement the Convention's strong provisions on risk education and victim assistance. While we, the ICBL-CMC, welcome and support all initiatives to bring and highlight the efforts of mine action, these efforts alone, albeit very necessary, indispensable, will not secure a future free of the threat and scourge of these weapons. In order for mine action to produce sustainable results, there needs to be a guarantee these weapons will never be used again and will not cause new harm and new contamination. This guarantee can be achieved only through formal adherence to the two conventions that ban the use, production, stockpiling, transfer of these weapons and oblige their complete elimination. Until all countries, including in the South Caucasus, renounce these weapons and join these conventions, the sustainability and effectiveness of mine action efforts remain at risk. In addition, both conventions offer a framework of cooperation and assistance available for their members, aimed at supporting and advancing mine action efforts in affected member states. It certainly is an important consideration in donors' decision-making whether a state seeking support for mine action adheres formally to the conventions or whether it still reserves the right to use the weapon and cause new harm and new contamination in the future. In closing, we once again call on all states still remaining outside of these conventions, including Azerbaijan and all states of South Caucasus, to join the Mine Ban and Cluster Munition Conventions as the very first indispensable step to ensure effective, sustainable, and durable impact of mine action efforts. The civil society, the ICBL-CMC, with our members worldwide, as the Azerbaijan campaign sitting on the panel with me today, including survivors and victims of these weapons, remain fully committed and eager to continue working together with states authorities and all partners for full universalization and implementation of these conventions, as the only effective means to achieve a world free of these weapons once and for all. Thank you very much for this opportunity today, and I'm very pleased to hand over to my colleague from Azerbaijan. Hafiz, the floor is yours.
Təşəkkür edirəm. Mən ingiliscəm biraz yaxşı olmadığına görə üzrlü sayın Azərbaycanca danışacağım. Kollegalarımız kömək eləyəcək.
Thank you very much. I would like to continue with the Azerbaycan language.
Bizim təşkilatın apardığı tədqiqatlar göstərir ki, həm də Landmine Monitor reporta beynəlxalq kampaniyanın proyekti olan Landmine Monitor report üzrə aparılan tədqiqatlar göstərir ki, Azərbaycan minalarla çirklənmə səviyyəsinə görə dünyada ilk sıralarda yer tutur.
According to Landmine Monitor report projected by International Campaign to Ban Landmines, Azerbaijan is among the top 10 countries in the world in terms of the level and number of landmines.
Tədqiqatlar göstərir ki, Azərbaycan ərazisinin 12% mina və partlamamış hərbi sursatlarla çirkləndirilib.
According to these reports and surveys, more than 12% of Azerbaijan's territory is contaminated with landmines.
Mən sizin diqqətinizə indi minalara harda rast gəlinir, onları çatdırmaq istəyirəm.
I would like to emphasize your attention where has landmines in Azerbaijan.
Əkinə yararlı torpaqlarda, su hövzələrində, qəbristanlıqlarda, dini abidələrin yaxınlığında və digər məktəblərdə, yollarda, bütün bu ərazilərdə bizim tədqiqatlar göstərir ki, minalara rast gəlinir.
It was discovered that areas such as gardens, forests, schools, destroyed settlements, cemeteries, riverbanks, and other places.
Qəbristanlıqlarda konkret hadisələr baş verib və nəticədə 3 nəfər həlak olub, 4 nəfəri yaralanıb. Ağdam rayonu və Laçın rayonu ərazisində.
There is accurate information about the landmine incident on the cemeteries located in the Ağdam and Laçın districts.
Füzuli rayonunda, Cəbrayıl rayonunda, Tərtər rayonunda dini abidələrin ətrafında minalara rast gəlinir.
Also, Füzuli districts, Cəbrayıl districts, and other places.
300-dən artıq su hövzəsində işğaldan azad olunmuş ərazilərdə, çaylarda, kəhrizlərdə, quyularda, çay kənarlarında minalara rast gəlinir və bunlar çox təhlükəli vəziyyət yaradıblar.
More than 300 groundwater aquifers were contaminated with landmines and ammunition in these territories.
Mən vaxtınızı çoxalmaq istəmirəm. Biz bütün bunların hamısını bu hesabatda vermişik. Maraqlananlar hesabatla tanış ola bilərlər. Sadəcə onu demək istəyirəm ki, həm də vaxt azdır. Mina qurbanları arasında narahat edici faktlar var.
We published and we gave our reports regarding landmine statistics and landmine incidents.
Mənim həmkarım qeyd etdiyi 381 nəfər 2020-ci ilin noyabr ayından sonra mina qurbanı qeydə alınıb, 70 nəfər həlak olub, onun 55 nəfəri mülki şəxslərdir.
We are worrying about the landmine victims. After 2020, 381 people killed by landmine in Azerbaijan.
Və həmin mülki şəxslərin arasında çox təəssüflər olsun ki, uşaqlar da var, qadınlar da var, jurnalistlər də var.
Among these civilians, unfortunately, there are children, women, and others.
Ona görə buradan bildirmək istəyirəm ki, bizim problemimiz çox böyük problemdir və beynəlxalq birlik bizdəki bu problemə diqqəti artırmalıdır və Azərbaycana bu sahədə hər tərəfli dəstək göstərilməlidir.
As a result, we have very big and serious landmine problem, and I call to international community, please support us in this serious problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving us the testimony from the ground. We have good news from the Secretariat of the Social Forum. We have an additional 15 minutes because we started also late. So that gives enough time for the last two speakers and for a short Q&A session. I would like to give the floor first to Beatrice Presutti, who is the Program Officer of the Geneva International Center for Humanitarian Demining. She is coming with an experience from Italy as well, and she will share with us some best practices. And then we have Florian.
Thank you so much. I prepared a speech, but I'll try to be shorter. I want to follow up on what my colleagues said about the fact that mine action is not only about mine action. I think at this point we are increasingly acknowledging in the sector that mine action, the impact that mine action can bring goes beyond saving lives. And there is enough evidence to show the importance of mine action for development and peace impacts. Specifically, if you are interested on the topic, the GSEHD has collected solid evidence in 8 different countries, with different case studies. It showcased the contribution of mine action to sustainable development, articulating this with the SDGs. These case studies are on our website, and some of these are here with me if you're interested later. But as I was saying, the point is not only showcasing the importance of mine action for sustainable development, which we still have to continue doing as we are doing here today, but it's also about integrating mine action with sustainable development and peace. And this is maybe more challenging, but it's absolutely key. And according to GSEHD, one way to facilitate this integration is through the use of global agendas such as the 2030 Agenda, which can offer us, yes, the opportunity to create additional SDGs as SDG 18, but also, broadly speaking, to integrate mine action even under the other 17 SDGs, even when the SDG 18 can't be created. Global agendas often come with an institutional and coordination mechanism that in some cases can allow national mine action authorities to be represented in a forum that is at the national or regional level and that looks at development in a cross-cutting manner. And this would enable mine action to integrate its contribution at a broader level. Similarly, broader global agendas often come with implementation plans as the socioeconomic development plans for the 2030 Agenda, and this gives the opportunity to mine action to be integrated into these broader plans. This was the case, for example, for Lao PDR and for Cambodia, which not only introduced mine action under SDG 18, but introduced mine action also in relation to other SDGs, demonstrating how mine action can be cross-cutting. I will just conclude saying that, of course, this also calls the mine action sector to reflect this into its strategies and into its programs. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Beatrice. I think the key word also among many of the speakers is these cross-cutting initiatives and the examples and good practices that can be shared among the institutions and the various agencies involved. And this is why we thought important to have one of the loudest advocacy disarmament organization, ICANN, represented here through the voice of Florian Ebenkamp, who is the advocacy officer of ICANN. You know, this is the Nobel Prize winner from 2017, the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, and probably one of, again, the strongest advocacy example in terms of disarmament. And Florian himself has an experience in advocacy, data-based advocacy campaigning, including with civil society, media, parliamentarians. I think it's very interesting, and involving cities at the municipal level. So that's a very relevant experience. Please tell us more.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, and thank you so much for Umut for organizing this panel and for inviting us to contribute. I need to start at the outset, doesn't work on demining, but we take great inspiration from the international campaign to ban landmines on our campaign. Because after all, the prohibition of landmines evolved from a conversation that started on a purely military utility of these weapons to one of urgent humanitarian concern. And by focusing on this humanitarian impact of landmines, the indiscriminate harm and lasting devastation in populated areas and beyond, we saw a powerful shift that led to a comprehensive legal ban in 1997. And of course, we would like to see a paradigm shift like that also for nuclear weapons, because these weapons also kill indiscriminately and the consequences of these weapons transcend time and space. There are, of course, many good reasons to abolish nuclear weapons. I want to focus on one that has been central to our campaign. Often overlooked is the aspect of the astronomical financial cost of maintaining these weapons, money that could be used for so many other good things in the world. To set the context for where these investments have led us, the doomsday clock, a symbol of our world's nuclear threats, now sits at 90 seconds to midnight, the closest it has ever been since the Cuban Missile Crisis. We live at a time of unprecedented nuclear risk. And amid this, the 9 countries possessing nuclear weapons spent over $91 billion in 2023 on nuclear arsenals, while millions globally face pressing needs. And this colossal sum, of course, fuels weapons of mass destruction instead of funding initiatives that could lift lives, address poverty, protect the planet, you name it. Resources that could fund universal education, eliminate hunger, the SDGs, provide clean water, are instead diverted to maintaining tool of global devastation. Nuclear spending is not only an economic drain, it also deepens the global arms race of nuclear weapons, undermining both peace and security. After all, every dollar directed towards nuclear weapons is $1 less for healthcare, for education or climate, areas that are so fundamental to the fulfillment of human rights. It's a diversion of resources that perpetuates inequality and weakens the foundation of our common security. And so the humanitarian impact of nuclear weapons is catastrophic. Research indicates that even what they call a limited nuclear war would devastate the planet's climate and threaten billions with famine. So accepting this reality compels us towards a global effort for nuclear disarmament. Divesting from nuclear weapons is not only an economic issue, it's also, of course, an ethical issue. By divesting, we take a firm stand that nuclear weapons have no place in a responsible and sustainable future. Just imagine a world where nuclear weapon spending is reallocated to address some of our humanity's greatest concerns. It could go to disarmament efforts, to demining. It would make the world safer. Investments in international treaty and support for NGOs, especially in those communities affected by nuclear weapons, are vital steps to a nuclear weapon-free world. And secondly, shifting that budget to sustainable development would, of course, uplift livelihoods. It would provide universal health care, women's empowerment, poverty eradication. It would promote real human security. To give you a figure, 1 second of global nuclear weapon spending could fund 17,000 vaccines for UNICEF. A third area is, of course, the climate crisis. Continuing to invest in nuclear arsenal is unthinkable in the climate crisis that we live in. Instead, we could fund climate mitigation and adaptation, building a resilient and safer future. Similar to the Landmine Convention, we now have the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which offers a path forward into this future. The TPNW underscores the vast disparity between nuclear weapons' very limited military utility and their apocalyptical potential. It provides a legal framework to end nuclear arms, and it has inspired a nuclear divestment campaign, proving that progress is possible, even if the nuclear weapon states don't join this treaty immediately. So, coming back to what I started, comparing the postulated military value of weapons of mass destruction with the humanitarian and financial costs leaves us with only one conclusion: nuclear weapons cost us the future. Thank you, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Florian, and this completes the various aspects. Very comprehensive, very holistic. We have a few minutes for Q&A. Maybe we can take 2 questions from the floor, and then maybe one of the participants can have a final word before we conclude. One here and one there. Okay. Maybe you introduce yourself quickly.
Thank you very much. My name is Mehmet Şükrü Güzel from Center for Peace and Reconciliation Studies. I would like to mention a comment, not a question, because the system that is being made in this building and Human Rights Council, in fact, disarmament and demining based on the concept of the state, subject Articles 51 of the UN Charter, self-defense, and Article 2.7. But this gives an illegal impunity for the non-state armed groups, because if a non-state armed group put a mine, it's an act of terrorism. And unfortunately, non-state armed groups, with the demining process, had given an illegal impunity, as well as transnational crime has been given an illegal impunity within the UN Charter because of the missing point implementations. I do advise Mr. Umut Mirzaev and the International Eurasian Peace Front, maybe they can prepare some paperwork that can be aided by the UN General Assembly, two-thirds of the words, to aid for the UN Global Counterterrorism Strategy, for the demining, to protect the future. For example, all the casualties in Nagorno-Karabakh, the UN legal system as of today had given an illegal impunity for the transnational crime. Who sold them? An illegal impunity for the due diligence who produced the landmines. An illegal impunity for the responsible of the effective of the control, and there are other things, but what I would like to say is that the system of demining is in fact wrong within the UN legal system, and we should go on criminalization for preventive measures by the UN Global Counterterrorism Strategy with a new UN General Assembly resolution. I thank you.
Thank you. The second question, if it was more a comment and a substantial proposal, the representative of Azerbaijan.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to extend my heartfelt congratulations to our esteemed panelists for their insightful contributions on this timely and important topic. It's crucial to highlight that nearly 1/3 of the UN member states are affected by mine contamination. So there is an obvious need to raise awareness through all platforms, including the Human Rights Council, regarding the negative human rights implications of landmines and explosive remnants of wars, and explore ways to address this issue. On 19 September 2024, a joint statement titled Addressing the Human Rights Implications of Landmines and Explosive Remnants of War was delivered during the 57th session of the Human Rights Council. Initiated by a core group including Azerbaijan and co-sponsored by 66 countries, the statement drew attention to the serious negative impact of landmines and called on human rights bodies and mechanisms to address these issues. As you are aware, due to 30 years of conflict, Azerbaijan suffers from mine pollution problem and stands among the most heavily mine-contaminated countries in the world. It's estimated that approximately 1.5 million landmines contaminate over 13 of country's territory. So it's vital to note that landmines pose significant obstacles to restoration initiatives, various infrastructure and green energy projects in the liberated territories of Azerbaijan. Addressing landmine issues is crucial not only for human rights, but also for facilitating sustainable development and green energy initiatives. Therefore, it's important for Azerbaijan to receive accurate maps of their mines. So in conclusion, we would like to call on all parties to support Azerbaijan's mine action efforts as a matter of human solidarity. I thank you.
Thank you. This statement is available on the website of the Human Rights Council?
Yes, it's available.
Okay, so in case some participants need it, it's there, and it's a public document. The representative of Armenia wanted the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and we regret that representatives from Azerbaijan again have misused today's event for the propaganda purposes, though there were no direct mentioning of my country in the statements of the representatives of Azerbaijan. However, this is the case in the material distributed by the Azerbaijani representatives, and this comes as no surprise to us that this is not the first, and we believe not the last time when Azerbaijan abuses in such a way the various international fora to disseminate false and unsubstantiated information about Armenia. I would like only to remind that ICJ has twice unanimously rejected the request by Azerbaijan to indicate provisional measures against Armenia on the grounds that Azerbaijan has not placed before the court evidence that Armenia's alleged conduct with respect to landmines violated the rights of Azerbaijani people under international law. And in conclusion, Azerbaijan exploits the issue of landmines in order to justify its numerous violations of international law committed during its attacks and aggression against both the people of Nagorno-Karabakh and sovereign territories of the Republic of Armenia. And Armenia deplores the misuse of issues related to landmines by Azerbaijan to whitewash its occupation policy and war crimes. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very important to hold such panels, and as I said it in the beginning, the goal is really to bridge among institutions heavily involved in humanitarian disarmament. The intention here is really to create a bond between those institutions. I have to say, when we prepared this event, there was a sense of curiosity among the organizations represented here, all with an international activity and impact. And what Juan Carlos said at the beginning, that he sees here new faces breaking the silos, is an encouragement that such panels are needed. So the intention, at least from my viewpoint, is that it creates a dialogue which is absolutely essential. Solutions cannot be found within silos. And that's the main purpose of us being around the table.
I have somebody.
You have somebody.
Yes.
You have a comment.
Biz bir saatten biraz artıktı buradayız. Bir saatten artık. Burada propaganda yok. Biz faktları danışırıq.
So I'm going to help with the translation just a little bit so everyone can understand. So basically, Mr. Umud is saying from his side that here we're not just here to discuss about the propaganda. However, we're trying to talk about the human rights side of these issues and how it's affecting people around the world.
30 ildir mənim ailəm deport olunub öz evindən, torpaqlarından, öz yurdundan.
And Mr. Umud is saying that it's about 30 years that he and his family has been deported from his territory. 30 years, yeah. 30 years that his family has been deported from their own territory, I mean their own house.
Bu şekilde gördüğünüz hanım, kadın benim bacımdır.
And the picture that you're seeing on his hand that is currently displaying, that woman is actually his sister.
Şəkildəki qıçı olmayan da onun oğludur.
And that's his son, actually.
Ötən il, keçən il.
And last year he fell into landmine.
26'sında düşdü minaya.
In April last year he became the mine victim.
Mənim komandamda, mənim ofisimdə bu cür burada olan 10 nəfərin yarısı mənim komandamda çalışan insan.
And all the pictures that have been displayed today and the one in his hand as well that is displaying, all of them actually are employed of IPF and they're deminers of IPF.
Ermənistan mina istehsal edir.
And the Armenians are in productions of landmines.
Bunu kim bilmir? Bunu biz deməyək.
And are we not supposed to talk about this?
Heç bu vaxtda danışmadıq burada.
And we haven't actually talked about the productions of the landmines by the Armenians.
Yəni biz propaganda eləməyə gəlməmişik bura. Biz problemlə danışırıq.
Initially, we're not here to talk about propaganda. However, we're here to talk about the reality and the problem that we're facing and the humanity itself is facing.
Propaganda az öncə bu koridorda olan tədbirdə idi.
We believe that the propaganda would be previously, prior to this event, there was a auditorium of a few people that came together.
Bir belə adam danışdı, bir dəfə də birimiz Ermənistanın adını demədik burada.
However, we've been here for past hours. We've never mentioned anything about Armenians as a propaganda. We haven't talked about the aggression.
30 il bizim torpaqlar 20% Azərbaycan torpaqlarını Ermənistan işğal elədi.
And for the past 30 years, Armenians have occupied the 20% of Azerbaijani territory.
1.2 milyon insan evindən eşiyindən yoxdur.
And over 1
million var, köçkün var.
Over 1 million individuals have become IDPs and refugees as well.
Biz bunu deməyək.
And are we not supposed to talk about this?
Olmaz, gentlemen. Muharebe kurtarıptı. Barış lazımdı.
The war have ended, we need to reconcile and talk about peace, actually.
Sağ olun, teşekkür ediyorum.
Thank you.
Başlayın, biraz emosyonaldan.
Sorry that I have been speaking emotionally. I apologize.
Sorry.
Can I ask a question, please?
We have.
John have a question. Please.
You have a question. It's. And I want to say, because we need to finish and we need to close this event. It's very special, the dynamics of the social forum. Usually when you have events during the Human Rights Council after 1 hour, regardless of the emotions, regardless of the cries, regardless of all the suffering of people around the table, at the end of the hour, we close the door and we go away. And going away, we try to continue this dialogue outside of the room. So it's a beginning of the dialogue sometimes, it's a continuation of the dialogue, and it's extremely important that it continues. And I'm grateful as a moderator to see that the various countries in this particular conflict are present. We have been talking here about conflicts in Asia, in Africa. We have here representatives of Ukraine. Many other countries have been affected, and I really don't want to finish this debate in a bilateral discussion. If we have time for one more remark, but then you also wanted a remark, and then we need to conclude, right?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Very quickly,
very briefly. I can show thousands of such photos of the Armenians suffered from the explosion of landmines. As regards the propaganda, what is this? One of the first pages of this book says, every visitor to the liberated lands, be they Azerbaijani or foreign citizen, can see manifestations of Armenian atrocities with their own eyes. This is one of the first pages of this book. What is this other than of propaganda?
It's I don't know. I have not looked at the book, frankly. Again, I don't know if it's an official book or not. It's one of the publications published here. The goal again is to engage in a dialogue, and I am grateful as a moderator that this dialogue continues. If we'd have really to have a final word. Maybe also a final word around the table from Juan Carlos, or you want to, but really final word.
Yes.
Bu müstəqil qeyri-hökumət təşkilatının beynəlxalq icmanın maliyyə dəstəyi ilə hazırlanmış hesabatıdır və xahiş edirəm hər biriniz, o cümlədən də Ermənistan Respublikasının nümayəndəsi bu hesabatla tanış olsun. Burada hər şey göstərilibdir.
Okay, so basically what he just said now in short form is that the book in his hand is a report made from his organization, and it has the statement of the mine problem and the real statistics of what the mine problem in Azerbaijan is. So the book is like, he's kindly requesting everyone to have a look at the report, and the book in his hand, you can have a look and see the reality of the mine problems in Azerbaijan. Basically, it's all written in the book. So I think we don't need to go extra miles and talking over and over again. It's just saying that we can just have a look at the book and we all learn and we can educate ourselves.
Thank you very much again. I would like to thank all the panelists for these fruitful discussions. And unfortunately, once more, like we're witnessing again that Armenia attempt to, again, misuse the platform, and also referring to the ICJ and the organization which refuted the request of this very country against Azerbaijan. And our colleague told that this is propaganda, but it's just a pure constatation of facts, and it's not something, it's some undeniable facts. And we're not here again, as you said, as Mr. Umut said, to open this again, aggression and the occupation, and again the war is over, and where we need to reconcile, and this is the first step towards the peace, and again to solve all these human rights issues which we faced again due to this 30 years long occupation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a good conclusion. John, you have a question?
I would actually have an actual question, and I think let's forget about the bad blood and whatever is going on in the room. Let's just go straight to the question. I think I have a very interesting question, and I want the Armenians representative to talk about, but most especially the panelists. So my question goes straight to the panelists. So I think most of us talked about the advocacy of landmines and how we need to actually talk about, talking about the government agencies, government taking actions, even taking responsibilities of their own actions. As someone in this position, and you have opportunity to be here today, to talk about your leading important organizations, what would your advice be? Till what extent would you say government should take responsibilities? If, I'm sorry to say it, no bad blood against Armenians, but if there's landmines in a particular territory planted by someone, the person needs to take responsibilities. So however, if we're talking bad bloods like it's this, is that, so will the Armenians actually take responsibilities, or the panelists, what do you say to this? It's not only in Azerbaijan. Let's go around the world. It happens in Africa. It happens in Ukraine today. We see Ukraine. It's a real problem. And people are dying. We have a statistic that says numbers of children, women, years to come. Even I'm scared that if I give birth to a child, it might actually get affected by landmines. So what are we supposed to do as someone that's heading an organization, please? And I want the Armenians to answer as well.
Thank you very much for this question. I would like to mention that just a few months ago, Armenia handed over 8 new maps of minefields in Nagorno-Karabakh to Azerbaijan, and their copies were sent to international partners. Besides this, Armenia, as a sign of the commitment to the peace agenda with Azerbaijan based on humanitarian considerations, handed over 972 maps of minefields in Nagorno-Karabakh to Azerbaijani representatives in 2021 without any preconditions. And Armenia has contributed thus to demining efforts in good faith by unilaterally providing the minefield maps in its possession. Following these humanitarian steps, Azerbaijan continues information campaign accusing Armenia of providing inaccurate maps and using these humanitarian steps to incite hatred towards Armenia. And we have repeatedly stated that we don't have better quality maps, and simply they do not exist.
Thank you. John, where are you from?
I'm Nigerian, but I'm not satisfied with that answer.
Please, again.
I was not satisfied with his answer.
You also addressed the question to
the panelists, please. So I want the panelists to talk about
John,
it. Yeah.
I would like to have a final word from the one who is preparing in 3 weeks a major international convention in Cambodia that will not look at one specific region, who will look at the entire world and the millions of people suffering. So, Juan Carlos, what would you tell us as a very final word to this panel? Please, you have really the final word. Thank you.
Well, it's a great honor, but thank you very much. I think what we're looking at under the convention is the humanitarian impact of this weapon, and that should always be our focus, is the humanitarian impact of anti-personnel mines. I think all states have the responsibility within their jurisdiction or control to address the impact of anti-personnel mines, to remove these mines, to deliver risk education to the population so there's no more victims, to deliver support to those survivors and families who unfortunately did suffer from these weapons, and to ensure that all stockpiled mines are destroyed. That is the 164 states that have joined this convention. There's 33 to go. Both Azerbaijan, Armenia are part of these 33 states not parties. And we, of course, encourage all states not parties to revisit their landmine policy. To say, yes, the landmines are terrible is one thing, and to make that step to join the treaty, join the convention, decide to once and for all ban this weapon and prohibit it, it's the biggest step you can take to align yourself with the treaties. So I would like to see all states not parties well represented at the end of the year to give some words about their intention to pursue accession to the treaty as soon as possible. So thank you.